Hello and welcome to Mr.EvilWakes. If you love scary stories to sleep to, you're in the right place. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment where you're watching from in the world. Now, relax, close your eyes, and let the rain carry you into the darkness.
Story 1. My wife got a skin graft from a cow. Now she thinks she'll give birth to an animal. My pregnant wife got in a car accident a few months ago. Thank God it didn't kill anyone, but it tore a chunk out of her arm. The doctors decided she needed a skin graft. I had heard of animal skin being used before, but it didn't make it any less strange when they sewed the cow skin on. It was disturbing to watch. The skin looked slippery in the doctor's hands. And it looked so out of place on my wife's arm. It wasn't the right color. It was filled with tiny red holes, like some sort of fleshy lace. The cow skin veil was sewn on my wife's arm, and I thought that was the end of it. But even when she started to heal, even when everything went right just like the doctors said, my wife never really got over it. I kept catching her staring at the spot on her arm. She didn't pick at it. She just stared for what felt like hours sometimes. Like she was reading it, observing it, waiting for it to change. That's not what concerned me though, not really. One day she looked at me, and she told me. Part of her was not like it should be anymore. She was not completely human. I told her she was just having anxiety. I know that's dismissive. I just didn't know what to say. I knew the car accident was traumatic, and so was the surgery, but how was I honestly supposed to respond to that? I pushed my worry down. I wanted to focus on the excitement of being a parent, and the miracle that my wife was okay. But she didn't stop staring. Even when the holes healed, and the cow skin melted into the rest of her arm like its own home, like it belonged there. I felt like she was waiting for something. I did not know what. A few weeks after the surgery, I woke up deep in the night. I wasn't sure what had disturbed me, but my wife was gone. Then I realized I could hear something. It was a shrill, singing voice. It sounded like someone pretending to be a cartoon character. I frowned and sat up and immediately flinched. My wife was crouched next to the bed, right beside my head. Her neck was tucked into her chest, looking at her swollen stomach. "Are you talking to our baby?" I asked. "Yes," she told me, "but it's not your baby anymore. The cow skin is a part of me, so I am a part of its lineage now." She paused and thought for a moment. "I don't know what I'll give birth to. I think it might be an animal." "What the fuck are you talking about?" I snapped, fighting not to raise my voice. She looked at me and smiled slightly. "They say an organ transplant can change your personality. Your DNA remembers everything. I don't think this is very different. I don't think it's as absurd as you believe." I told her to go back to bed. She just said part of her wasn't like it should be anymore. She said she wasn't completely human. I decided if she didn't start acting normal by the end of the week, I would take her to the doctor. But I would never get the chance. The next morning my wife wasn't in bed again. A strange smell drifted through the house, like a spirit. It smelled earthy and rotten, but there was another part. Almost a sweetness. It was so pungent it was almost a physical presence. It pushed against my nose and squeezed around my head. When I left the bedroom, it only got worse. I followed the smell to the kitchen, where my wife was sitting at the table. She was naked, whispering softly like she did the night before. The whole room glistened. I reached my hand to the wall, and what I felt was sticky and soiled. "What the hell is this?" I shouted. My wife turned her head and smiled. Then I saw her breasts, dripping with sickly yellow. I took in a breath of rotten air, and it finally hit me what it was. The kitchen was smeared with spoiled breast milk. There was the faint sweetness of birth behind it all. I was entirely frozen. I needed to call the hospital. I didn't understand any of this. I didn't even know how she was producing breast milk this early. or how it had spoiled inside her body and turned sick and yellow. I needed to call the fucking hospital. I had tried to push my worry down, tried to focus on the excitement of parenthood. But this was more than anxiety or trauma, it was more than I could handle. And I failed my wife by not realizing that. I needed to move, run back upstairs, I needed to find my phone. I needed to call the hospital. But I just couldn't bring myself to move. My paralysis only deepened when my wife stood abruptly, and a dark yellow liquid spilled down her legs. "The baby's coming," she shouted with a grin. Pained groans began to slip from her mouth, but her smile never faltered. She widened her stance and her legs began to tremble. The yellow liquid was pooling onto the floor now, rancid and sweet and eating at everything it touched. Tears crept in her eyes and flowed down her cheeks, until she was howling in pain. But the joy never left her face. My head was a labyrinth of thoughts, all tripping over each other so not a single one came to me clearly. But the smell did. I could still smell the rot. I watched in horror as mound of flesh fell from my wife's body, squirming and wet. The baby was an amalgamation. It hurts my eyes to look at it. Its skin gleamed like the rotten milk, and 4 thin legs sprouted from its torso. On the end of every leg were 5 fingers. On the end of every finger there were hooves. Clumps of hair littered its head like mold. A skinny tail hung from its back. It had 2 mouths side by side, gaping and begging and screaming. Its existence must have been agony. It hurt my eyes to look at. My wife knelt down to it, cooing softly. She took the baby and held it to her heart. "What do you think we should name it?" Story 2. My new neighborhood has only one rule. Never, under any circumstances, help a lost pet. The house was a steal. That should have been the first red flag. A 3-bedroom craftsman with a wraparound porch for less than the cost of my cramped 2-bedroom apartment. It was in a quiet, secluded subdivision called Maple Creek, where all the lawns were impossibly green and the neighbors waved with all 5 fingers. The WA president, a woman named Carol with a smile as bright and hard as a porcelain doll's, met me on my first day. She handed me a welcome basket with a bottle of cheap Chardonnay and a single, laminated sheet of paper. "We're so glad to have you, Mark," she said, her eyes crinkling in a way that didn't seem genuine. "We're very relaxed here at Maple Creek. We don't have rules about lawn height or fence colors. We only have one." She tapped a perfectly manicured nail on the laminated sheet. On it, in a large, friendly font, were the words, "Rule number 1. If you see a pet that appears lost or in distress, do not approach it. Do not feed it. Do not let it into your home. Go inside, lock your doors, and ignore it until it has gone." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. "What, are the raccoons organized crime around here?" Carol's smile didn't waver. "It's not a suggestion, Mark. It's the only thing we require of you. It is for the safety and harmony of the community." Her tone was light, but her eyes were deadly serious. It was the first time I felt a chill in the warm afternoon air. For the first month, it was perfect. Quiet, peaceful. I almost forgot about the bizarre rule. I'd see people walking their dogs on leashes, cats sunning themselves on porches. They were clearly owned, clearly where they were supposed to be. The rule seemed like a weird quirk from a bygone era. Then came the storm last night. It was a real gully washer, with thunder that shook the windows and rain that came down in sheets. It was around midnight when I heard it, a sound that cut through the noise of the storm. A pathetic, high-pitched whine. I peered through my living room window. Huddled under the eave of my porch, shivering and soaked, was a golden retriever. It was beautiful, with big, sad eyes and a leather collar, but no tags. Every time the thunder cracked, it would press itself against my door and cry. My heart broke. The laminated card was sitting on my counter, and Carol's words echoed in my head. "Go inside, lock your doors, and ignore it. Asterisk. But how could I? It was just a dog. A scared, lost animal. What was the worst that could happen? I'd be breaking some stupid, arbitrary rule from a power-tripping law president. So I did it. I opened the door. The dog practically fell inside, shaking a puddle onto my hardwood floor. It looked up at me with such gratitude, nudging its wet head into my hand. I got it a towel and a bowl of water, and it immediately settled down on my rug, letting out a contented sigh. I felt a wave of relief. See, just a dog. I fell asleep on the couch watching TV. I was woken up a few hours later by a sound that wasn't the storm. Knock, 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 asterisk. A slow, deliberate knock on my front door. The rain had stopped. The dog on the floor lifted its head, let out a low growl, and then, strangely, trotted to the door, its tail giving a single, lazy wag. I looked through the peephole. Standing on my porch was a man. He was tall, impossibly tall, dressed in a neat, old-fashioned suit, like a door-to-door salesman from the 1950s. He was smiling, a wide, friendly smile that showed too many teeth, all of them perfectly straight and white. I opened the door a crack, my hand still on the chain. "Can I help you?" "Good evening," the man said, his voice smooth and pleasant. "I do apologize for the late hour. I believe you've found my dog." He gestured with his head toward the retriever, who was now sitting patiently at his feet, looking up at him. "Oh, yeah, he was out in the storm," I said, my relief making me feel foolish for ever being scared. "Glad you found him." The tall man's smile widened, stretching his face in a way that felt unnatural. "He has a habit of getting out. He's a bit of a rascal." He leaned forward, his eyes, dark and unblinking, locking onto mine. "But he's very good at his job." My blood ran cold. His job. The man chuckled, a dry, rustling sound. He reached down and patted the dog's head. "Of course," he said, his gaze never leaving mine. "His job is to find the kindest person in the neighborhood." He straightened up, his towering frame seeming to block out all the light from the porch. "Thank you so much for your hospitality," the man said, his smile finally reaching his eyes, which now glinted with a terrifying, hungry light. "He likes you very much. He's decided he wants you to meet the rest of the family." My mind screamed at me to slam the door. Slam it, lock it, run. But my body wouldn't obey. I was a statue, my hand frozen on the door. The man's smile never faltered as he gave the door a gentle push. The brass security chain didn't snap or break. It stretched, elongating like taffy with a soft, metallic groan before falling away, limp and useless. "There now," he said pleasantly. "That's better." He didn't enter. He simply took a step back and gestured with an open palm toward the street. It wasn't a command, it was an invitation, and for reasons I can't explain, I found myself stepping out onto the porch. The golden retriever trotted ahead of us, its tail held high. The air was different out here. The storm had washed everything clean, but the world felt muted, like I was looking at it through a pane of smoked glass. The streetlights cast long, distorted shadows that seemed to writhe and twist at the edges of my vision. As we walked, I noticed other things. A sleek black cat emerged from beneath a hedge, its eyes glowing with a faint phosphorescence. It fell into step beside the retriever. A few houses down, a parrot was perched on a mailbox. It didn't squawk or speak, it just swiveled its head, tracking our progress in perfect silence. They were all moving with us. An honor guard of silent, watchful animals. I looked at the houses we passed. Through their big picture windows, I could see my neighbors. They were frozen in place, like mannequins in elaborate dioramas. One family was sitting around a dinner table, forks raised halfway to their mouths. In another house, a man was stopped mid-stride, one foot hovering over the floor. They were all facing our direction, their faces blank, their eyes wide and vacant. "Don't mind them," the tall man said, noticing my gaze. "They're very good at following the rules." We were heading toward the end of the cul-de-sac, to the oldest house on the block, a large colonial that had been dark and seemingly empty since I'd moved in. As we got closer, I could feel a low vibration through the soles of my shoes, a deep hum that seemed to emanate from the house itself. The golden retriever led the procession up the walkway and sat patiently before the heavy oak door. The other animals formed a silent, semi-circle behind us, their eyes all fixed on me. The tall man walked to the door. It swung open before he touched it, revealing nothing but a deep, impenetrable darkness inside. The low hum grew louder, resonating in my bones. It sounded like a purr. A gigantic, hungry purr. The man turned to me, his smile as wide and terrifying as ever. He gestured into the blackness. "After you," he said. "They've been so looking forward to this." Story 3. I work at a hotel at the end of the world. You probably think I mean I work at a hotel in the middle of nowhere. That would be incorrect. Then you assume I mean a dumpy room and board where you stay when your wife kicks you out for the 7th time again. Incorrect. What I mean is that I quite literally work at a 4-star establishment at the edge of the whole wide world, on a cliff overlooking the blank, black void of eternal nothingness, from which disembodied voices screech on the blackest of nights. Oh, and from which moderately perturbed voices moan on the not-so-blackest of nights. Before we get started, some ground rules. First, I'm not here to confirm or deny the whole flat earth theory, so don't even ask. Just don't. Second, I can't tell you where the hotel is located. Sorry, my uncle included that as a clause in my employee contract. Third, I may change certain names and dates to protect the identities of our guests, because of HIPAA and FERPA laws and such, or was it Furby laws? In all honesty, I'm not 100% sure those apply to bellhops. Frankly, the only reason I'm writing this is because the usual night receptionist got mono from kissing the entire kitchen staff at one of the summer parties, and my uncle's having me fill in for a few weeks. It gets boring at night with nothing to do. Real boring. I thought I might as well write about one of the weirder repeating guests who tried to check in a few nights ago. Weird is a spectrum here. Quite a few of the guests would fit into that category, but some more than others. We do get lots of your typical guests, humans on business retreats, lost hikers, blood eaters on family vacations. But we also get a lot of things coming to die, like people with terminal cancer or spider people whose legs are already starting to curdle inwards. Don't even get me started on the amount of elderly dogs that hobble in here coughing up blood. As my uncle explains it, like calls to like. Things at the end tend to seek out other ends, for example hotels constructed at the teetering edge of the precipice of nothingness. Things crawling here to die are so common there's a whole chapter in the employee handbook on it. It covers things like disposing of the bodies, and what to do if they're taking longer than expected to kick the can, and smart times to throw things into the void versus times that might aggravate the things in it to come out blessedly. Clean up is Cousin Lenny's job. I don't get paid enough for that. I'm getting off track. The guest. This was a few days ago, but it was 2, maybe 3, in the morning when the automatic front doors slid open. I looked up from my book Crime and Punishment for those interested, but nobody was there. The doors just do that sometimes. They slid open and closed 2 more times. I stopped bothering to look up. When it happened another few times, though, I figured it was time to call maintenance or manually lock them myself. I set down the book, and the man with only a mouth stood right in front of the desk. Okay, I know that sounds ominous, referring to somebody by a vague spooky description, but the only reason we didn't use a name is because he's never given us one. Probably that has to do with his lack of ears, eyes, or usual mode of receiving questions such as, "Hey, what's your name?" Just one overlarge, smiling mouth. Nobody, not even my uncle, has ever been totally sure if he can hear us, though he usually tends to get the drift when we tell him, "Get out of here." Rooms are for paying customers. I'd never actually turned him away before, but I'd seen others do it enough times to copy what they usually said. No face, no service. He stood there smiling. "I'm serious," I said. "No freeloaders. Anyways, we're all booked for tonight." A lie. He leaned towards me across the counter. "Look," I lowered my voice. "This is my first week at the front desk. I'd really love if my uncle decided to make this promotion permanent, meaning no incidents on my watch. Can you kindly leave like usual? Please." I waited a few seconds, then, "I'll even throw in a complimentary personal toothpaste." The man with only a mouth smiled wider, slid the toothpaste off the counter, then walked back out the automatic doors. Easy. I grabbed one of Uncle's drive peppers from the employee fridge to congratulate myself on a job well done. I could do this receptionist thing. Maybe my luggage lugging days really could be over. A $3 an hour raise and a desk job. That would be the life. The rest of my shift continued without issue. I signed off at 8 in the morning and checked myself into one of the spare rooms to crash the next few hours until my next shift started at noon. One of the joys of family business, crappy work schedules you can't say no to. The blackout curtains were pulled tight. The AC was clunking away. I'd nearly drifted off when my eyes jerked open. Something was wrong. I could sense it. It took a full minute of laying there still, listening, to realize what it was. Every time I breathed, something breathed with me. It wasn't a perfect match. There were slight inconsistencies to it, like an echo, enough I was absolutely sure. Something was next to me in the bed. It was nearly pitch black with the curtains, but the glow from the bedside clock shed just enough light for me to shift to my side and make out the glint off a set of perfect, smiling teeth. The man with only a mouth stared at me. Stared in a hypothetical sense of the word, that is. He was on his side, facing me, inches from my own face, on the open side of the bed. Waiting. I yawned as if merely readjusting positions and forced my eyes closed. As much as I wanted to spring from the bed and run for the door, I couldn't. I was stuck here, pretending to be asleep, feeling his breath on my face. You see, this has happened before. Even if the man with only a mouth did offer to pay for a room, we probably wouldn't let him. My uncle has a pretty strict, no murdering the other guests policy that the man has broken more than a few times over the years. The nights he shows up, we make sure every guest has only the exact amount of bed spots they need in their rooms. 4 guests. That would be 2 queens. 1 guest. A single twin. Somebody in your party dropped out at the last minute. You're getting a different room. If there's any spots left over or any empty beds, the man with only a mouth views it as an open invitation. Some of the less human visitors operate by less standard rules than people do. This is just one of his. If it's just an extra bed in your room, it's not so bad. Guests usually report a faceless man grinning at them from under the sheets, but no deaths. If it's an open spot in your own bed though, let's just say the reports are more on the cannibalistic side of that spectrum. If you were thinking about lying about your guest count on your next visit to avoid the upcharge, this is your gentle reminder that honesty always results in less blood. Before you call me an idiot in the comment section for booking myself a room that would break a rule I already knew about, my defense is this: I thought it only applied to guests, not employees. Turns out this was an everyone rule. Whoops. I lay there for 10-ish minutes. The whole time my eyes stayed closed. Those always went first from the reports. Eyes, then the ears, next the nose, and then the rest of you. All of it sliding through those wide, pearly gated jaws. Pretend you're asleep, my uncle's told me before. He never does anything until the guest wakes up. But of course every guest does have to wake up eventually. What would I do? Pretend to be asleep forever? Ridiculous. Well, that's what I tried. It was actually working, I'll have you know, all up until something long and slimy lapped at my nose. I let out a gentle snore. The tongue probed down the arch of my nose. I sleep stretched. The wet thing moved with me. It fingered tongue, each nostril with impatience. The man with only a mouth wanted to speed things along. Even with eyes closed, I could imagine that smile under the covers beside me. As much as I wish I could claim unfaltering calmness in the throes of the tempest, I was about a sneeze away from gonzo. The tongue was just entering my left nostril, and no, absolutely not, that was not about to happen, no sir. Somebody knocked on the door. I threw off the covers and bolted for it. Room service, my cousin, Francis started, then realizing it was just me, oh. Hey, you're supposed to book this under Uncle's name if it's just for a break between shifts, he told me. Syrup on the sheets, I said. A guest must have left it open. It's dripping everywhere. Francis' eyes sprung open. What? Where? I led him in, to the entirely empty bed. He leaned over, examining it. I shoved him over and pinned him down. HMMMPRF. He started, face full of pillow, but I cut him off. Man with only a mouth. I climbed in beside Francis. He was just in here a second ago. Sorry, I couldn't risk him coming back while I explained. Aw come on. Janitor crew was already short-staffed. I was assigned this whole floor by lunch. Nobody knows when you've changed the sheets anyways. Then I pulled the blankets back over me, and Francis, still grumbling, settled in for an early nap. See, you can't cut your stay short if you invite in the man with only a mouth. He knows the bookings, and as we always explain to our guests who demand a room change, he does not like your stay going short. Sleep until you were planning. Okay, it's almost 6 in the morning, and people are already starting to check out. I'll end there, but let me know if there's any questions you want answered for my next post. I'll try to write during my upcoming night shift. Oh, and please remember. One day you might decide to come visit the hotel at the end of the world. Maybe it will be for a family vacation. Maybe your doctor's just given you an unpleasant diagnosis, but whoever you are, whatever the reason may be, this is your formal reminder about one of our most important rules. Story 4. Doll Eyes. Have a good night, stay safe. My last passenger exits the car and slams the door, ignoring my goodbye, engrossed in her phone. Alrighty then. I mumble, rating her and opening my map back up. I check the time, and I still have time for one last ride before I should head home for some sleep. I set my signal to available, and just wait. My last drop-off was for the college dorms, so if I wait a little bit, I'm sure I'll get another. It's Friday night, everyone's out. I'm tapping my red-painted fingers on my wheel, when I see her. A teenage girl, standing on the sidewalk under a streetlight. She's small, maybe 5 feet. Large, brown eyes with a thick dark lash. Blonde hair pulled back in a braid, and a cardigan covering her shoulders. She has a small brown purse in her hands. She looks like a doll. And she looked anxious. I pull up a little and roll down my window. Hey hun, you okay? I ask. Oh, yes, I am. I'm just, she looks down the road, waiting for my ride. Are they late? I ask her. She's quiet, as she stares down the empty street. Yes, I suppose they are, she whispers. She seems scared, and I can't decide if she's scared because of the person or because of their absence. I can wait with you, if you would like. I tell her, putting my status in, unavailable, on the app. Oh, you don't need to, I'm sure I'll manage, she says shakily. It's no problem, we've already spoken more than me and my last passenger, and I was with her for 20 minutes. I could use the company, come on in. I tell her, unlocking my door. She pauses, and then slowly climbs in. She seems familiar to me, her small frame and blonde hair. Very reminiscent of my sister when we were her age, about 10 years ago. When I see her dress up close, I see it has little flowers all over it. The blush color of the flowers match her cardigan. Your outfit is cute. Very vintage, I love it, I say, handing her a water bottle. She smiles small, and mumbles something that sounds like thank you. We sit in silence for a few minutes before her voice squeaks. You have pretty eyes, they're very green. Like an olive, she says shyly. Oh thank you, I made them myself actually. I wink at her. She laughs softly, and looks back at the road. It's been about 15 minutes. Do you want to call them? I ask her. I don't have a phone. And I don't know the number, she tells me. Do you know where it is that you need to go? I ask her. She looks at me, and nods. How about I take you? I do it for a living anyways, I offer. Oh that's so nice of you, but I don't have any money to pay you with, she stammers. It's on me, consider it my good Samaritan act for the day. I pull up my GPS app, go ahead and put in your address here. She methodically punches in the information. Can I ask you a question? She asks me. Sure. I respond. Why are you being so nice to me? She asks, slowly turning to me. I smile sadly. You seem familiar to me. I think you remind me of my sister. She lives far away from me now, she got married and has kids. I miss her so much, and I would never want her waiting alone outside in the dark. A lot of creeps out at night. I pull up the GPS map. Only 15 minutes away, not bad at all. She seems to accept that as an answer, as she leans back and gets comfortable in her seat. You're a nice sister, she tells me, quietly. I put the car in drive as I pull out into the road. I definitely try to be, I respond. We let the radio fill the silence, as we drive through an area I'm not super familiar with. The very manicured trees start getting more scraggly as we turn down the dark curve of street. The app says 2 minutes away. So I finally ask her. Where am I taking you? I ask her. She doesn't respond, as we pull up to iron gates. I slow down and lean forward, trying to see where we ended up. Is this? I begin. Thank you for the ride, you're a very nice person. I like nice people, she tells me, patting my hand. You're welcome, I say slowly, looking at her in my passenger seat. I stop the car, and she unbuckles her seatbelt. I'm Marianne, by the way, she says. I smile back at her. Sadie, it was nice to meet you, Marianne, I tell her. It was a nice drive, and thank you again for the ride home, she beams. Home? I ask, looking up at the rusted sign that has weathered over the years. Goodbye, Sadie. She steps out of the car, waves at me through the window, and walks past the sign I've been staring at. Sanitarium. And then, I finally realize where I recognize her from. She doesn't remind me of my sister. She was on the news. She murdered her 2 sisters in cold blood, and took their eyes as souvenirs. They were calling her the doll eyes killer. When they asked her why she did it, she looked at them confused before speaking. Because they weren't nice, she said matter-of-factly. I'm still staring after her slack-jawed, when she looks over her shoulder at me. And winks. Story 5. We're forced to be nomads because of demons hunting us. My name's Pip. My wife, Rin, and I live full-time in an old RV that's seen better decades. It's a massive, lumbering beast, the kind of vehicle that groans around corners and makes parking anywhere feel like a boss fight. Still, it's home, noisy, temperamental, but oddly comforting. Best part, It keeps us mobile. Before we had the RV, we tried living out of our car. That didn't last. The RV may be finicky, but at least it gives us room to breathe, and a place to stretch out comfortably. We usually manage to stay in a place for 2, maybe 3 weeks before things start getting complicated. People notice. The air shifts. It's hard to explain, but we've learned not to push our luck. It's not just us we have to keep safe. We travel with 4 dogs, each with their own quirks. Nova is our sweet old Labrador Terrier mix, slow and half-blind but quick to sense danger. Kira's a Husky Wolf mix with an intense blue stare who loves everyone she meets. Aura, our Pomeranian Husky mix, has heterochromia and nary a brainchild to be found. And then there's Gila, yes, named after the Marvel goddess, a sharp-minded Doberman who takes guarding the RV more seriously than most security systems. One of the questions we hear the most is, why do you have so many dogs if you're always on the road? And honestly, it's a fair one. Most people struggle with the nomadic life on their own. Throw 4 dogs into the mix, and it sounds like chaos. But there's a reason behind every paw print. Nova's been with me since she was a puppy. She's not just a pet, she's my retired service dog, my shadow, my anchor. These days she's almost 16 and slower to get around, but she still insists on being wherever I am. Rin's had Kira since birth. At 9, Kira's entering her elder years too, but she's still sharp and enjoys long walks. Aura came along after we got the RV, back in 2022, a scrappy little furball with a big attitude. Gila joined the pack the following year. We took her in with the hope of training her to take over for Nova one day. She's got the brains for it, maybe too many brains, honestly, and a natural instinct for guarding. We know traveling with dogs isn't easy, and we never take it lightly. Our pups are healthy, vaccinated, and absolutely spoiled rotten. They're protected too, not just physically, but spiritually. The wards we've placed keep the demons from touching them. It's usually Gila who alerts us when something's wrong. She's fearless about things most dogs would avoid. The supernatural doesn't faze her. Balloons and vacuum cleaners, those are another story entirely. But when the demons show up, Gila is the first to react. Last time it happened, one of them appeared right outside our bedroom window in the dead of night. Gila launched herself at the screen and tore it to pieces trying to get to him. We know the names of the demons that follow us. They told us, whispered like rot slipping inside our skulls. But we don't say them. Not ever. Names carry weight, and theirs carry consequence. Even the nicknames we use privately are too close for comfort. Just sharing all of this is a big risk. There's a thin line between silence and survival, and I'm treading it carefully. So for your sake and ours, please don't try to figure out who they are. For simplicity, I'll call mine Blue, and the one that follows Rin, Yellow. I first encountered Blue in one of the worst ways imaginable, a moment that would scar anyone, let alone an 8-year-old. I was in the shower, rinsing shampoo from my hair, when a heavy sense of dread settled over me. Something felt off. I turned around, and he was there. Peering around the edge of the shower curtain, grinning. His skin was dark gray-blue color, rough and uneven. Too dark, spiraled horns jutted from his skull. His eyes were the color of fresh blood. And his mouth was the worst part. Full of jagged, sharp teeth, twisted into a predatory smile. The image is forever seared into my brain. Naturally, I screamed my lungs out. My mom rushed in, wrapped me in a towel, and held me in her lap while I shook and sobbed. I wasn't a timid kid. I played with snakes and spiders, and looked forward to Halloween more than my birthday. I used to imagine werewolves living under my bed, not to scare me, but to protect me. Monsters had always felt more like friends, until I met a real one. That's how my mom knew something was really wrong. I wasn't the type to invent stories, especially not ones that left me shaking and speechless. I'm lucky. She believed me. A lot of parents unfairly dismiss their kids' fears outright. Mine didn't, and I think that saved me more than once. The incident left me deeply traumatized. For months afterward, I couldn't shower alone. My mom had to sit in the bathroom while I washed, so I could be sure the demon wouldn't sneak up on me. She told me that demons couldn't stand holy things, like how vampires hated garlic or sunlight. So I started sleeping with a Bible tucked beside me, hoping it would keep blue face away. I really wish that had worked. But these things don't play by the old rules. They're ancient and older than the stories. I didn't see him face to face again for a long time, but he never left. Instead, he sank into the shadows around me and poisoned everyone I loved. He never touched anyone else, not directly. But when I was near, something in them twisted. My parents began to fight constantly. The house filled with tension, then hatred, and finally silence. They divorced soon after. Both sides of the family were cruel in different ways. I was the scapegoat, the misfit, the easy target. My Aunt Sharon even tried to kill me a couple of times, and it was lucky that my premonitions warned me. At school, it wasn't any better. Students tormented me, teachers turned cold, and I was repeatedly in trouble. It wasn't just bullying. It was like something invisible about me made people recoil. Like they could sense I was different, and not in a good way. I felt cursed. I wasn't a bad kid. Neurodivergent, sure. Quiet, weird, but I followed the rules. I respected adults. I tried. And still, I was hated and punished. One of the few who didn't treat me like a problem was my cousin Tommy. He was kind to me, protective, even. My best friend. But then his dad, my uncle, snapped. He shot Tommy and then himself. After that, I stopped letting people get so close. I had some other cousins I was and still am fond of, especially Joe, Logan and Nix. But I was afraid they would eventually grow tired of me, or that something would happen to them. So I surrounded myself with animals instead. I begged my mom to let me have more and more pets, until my room was practically a miniature zoo. My animals didn't judge me. They didn't change when Blue was near, and they were the only place I felt safe. Rin had a much earlier start with Yellow than I did with Blue, although I now realize we were both inundated with them around the same time. She's just a few years younger than me. Her mom was extremely neglectful and emotionally abusive. Rin has always had the gift, though she'd correct me and call it a curse, to see ghosts and other entities with crystal clarity. As a child, she often struggled to tell whether someone was alive or dead unless they had visible trauma. That's how clearly she sees them. Rin has also always had insomnia, the complete opposite of my narcolepsy, so being awake very late was just part of her normal routine. At the time, her toddler bed was tucked behind the couch in the living room. The apartment she shared with her mom and adoptive dad was a cramped one-bedroom, one bath, so she didn't have a room of her own. She was about 3 years old, trying to fall asleep, softly whispering to her giant stuffed panda bear. She'd made a little bed for it out of Legos, lovingly placed beside her own. At some point during the night, she watched, utterly fascinated, as a strange blue orb of light materialized above her and floated into the panda. She lay there, confused, wondering if she was dreaming, until the panda abruptly animated and began to violently kick her. Terrified, she ran to her parents' bedroom, only to realize neither of them were home. Sadly, this wasn't uncommon. With no other options, she fled to the bathroom to hide. Everything seemed calm at first, until the same eerie blue orb appeared again, hovering above the bathtub. This time, it zipped straight down into the drain. Frozen, hyperventilating, she watched in horror as something nightmarish began crawling out of the tub drain. She remembers it looked like a soaking wet clown, but most of the other details are muddled by fear and time. Rin was so scared that she suffered a severe asthma attack and passed out. When her mom returned the next morning, Rin tried to explain what had happened. Unlike my mom, Rin's mother didn't believe her. She screamed at her for lying and acting out for attention. But in a rare moment of compassion, her adoptive dad sat her down later that day and explained what it all meant. He told her that she had a gift, a way of seeing beyond the ordinary, and that dark things had already taken notice. He warned her to be careful what she interacted with, or she could end up in real danger. To help her start navigating it, he took her to a haunted doll museum, so she could begin learning the differences between the living and the dead. There, she saw and spoke with 2 ghost children, her first friendly encounter. But to this day, she still doesn't trust dolls. And clowns. Those remain a full-blown phobia. The next time she saw the blue orb, she was 6 years old. This time, it led to something much worse. Rin fell into a pool and drowned, technically. She was completely unresponsive, not breathing, for over 10 minutes. Everyone said it was a miracle she survived, and honestly, it was. But it wasn't without a price. She came back with an intense fear of water. Anything deep enough to drown in became a trigger. To this day, she avoids it whenever she can, the same way that showers still make me nervous. Rin saw Yellow's actual face for the first time when she was 7. She and a friend were playing hide and seek in her new apartment. Rin went to hide in the walk-in closet, and that's when she appeared. Those gleaming, yellow, animalistic eyes cut right through the darkness like teeth. That's the detail Rin remembers the clearest. Not the rest of her face. Just the eyes. They're still a regular feature of her nightmares. Yellow held her there, trapped in that closet for hours. Her so-called friend wasn't even looking for her. She just sat on the couch watching cartoons. No one came for Rin until her mom got home late that night and found her, shaken and sobbing, still inside the closet. It didn't stop there. Barely a week later, Yellow shoved Rin down a flight of concrete steps. The fall left her with a scar running down her spine, a permanent reminder of just how real Yellow is. After the next move, Yellow changed tactics. She began to mess with Rin's life more subtly, but no less cruelly. Important items would vanish and turn up in strange places, if they ever turned up at all. Things Rin knew she hadn't touched. Her mom thought she was just being careless and would scold her. Worse, people started accusing Rin of stealing. It was humiliating and isolating. Then Yellow began mimicking her. Not just her voice or movements, but her actual appearance. At first glance, you might think it was Rin standing there, until you noticed the twisted, unnatural grin or the hateful yellow eyes. Unlike Blue, Yellow doesn't care if she is seen. She wants to be seen. Numerous people over the years have caught glimpses of her and were deeply unsettled. Meanwhile, Blue was becoming more aggressive. In my teenage years, he stopped lurking and started attacking. I was shoved off of furniture, scratched, bitten, struck in the face, and more than once, pushed from dangerous heights. I'm more durable than an ordinary human, but I stopped keeping pets after a while. As each beloved animal passed from old age, I couldn't bear to replace them. I was terrified Blue might start hurting them, too. The only real peace ever came after moving. Every time my mom and I relocated, things would quiet down for a bit. That sliver of calm gave me the courage to get my first dog, Nova. Nova is sweet, loyal, and quickly proved herself an incredible warning system. Whenever something was off, she knew. Unfortunately, she was also terrified. When Blue came close, she'd try to wedge herself inside my hoodie to hide. Then came the worst escalation yet. After another move, this time across state lines to live with my mom and her boyfriend, Jim, things were peaceful for a while. Almost too peaceful, until Blue found us again. And he was livid. For the first time, he didn't just lash out at me. He possessed Jim. It was horrifying. Jim went from perfectly normal to a murderous monster over the course of a day, baseball bat in hand, trying to kill both me and my mom. He was a massive man and used to work as a bouncer. There was no way we could physically fight him off. Instead, my mom tricked him into going outside and then locked him out. The next morning, Jim had no memory of what happened. None. He was confused, disoriented, and a little scared himself. They broke up, and Jim went on to become some kind of traveling preacher, while me and my mom went back to scraping by and surviving however we could. But we learned something important. If we kept moving, Blue struggled to keep up. He was slower to find us. It wasn't a solution, but it bought us time. Yellow mirrored Blue in making people mistreat Rin the same way they did to me. Her adoptive dad, who she believed was her real dad, started physically abusing and assaulting her. Rin's mom didn't believe her and continued sending her over to him. She ran away once, and her mom didn't even notice she was gone. But despite the horror Yellow inflicted, Rin found an ally in the most unexpected way. She was supposed to have had a twin brother, but he was absorbed in the womb. That can happen sometimes. That twin, Danny, lives on inside her, and eventually, she was able to start communicating with him. He has a clear personality of his own, and they learned how to share bodily control. Danny became one of Rin's greatest comforts. Anytime she needed a break from abuse or had to do something overwhelming, like swim, he'd take over. Unlike Rin, Danny loves the water. The only thing he's afraid of are spiders, which Rin and I love, much to his dismay. Rin and I met on an online forum on Valentine's Day, 2017. It was ironic. We were immediately drawn to each other in a way neither of us had ever felt before. We were shocked by how much we had in common: real horror, genuine monsters, lives shaped by things most people wouldn't believe. We had a lot of rare abilities in common. It felt like fate. She moved in with me and my family in August 2018, on my birthday, no less. Best birthday gift I've ever gotten. At first, it seemed like Blue and Yellow were going to be mortal enemies. Honestly, we were delighted about that. We watched them become consumed with fighting each other, and for a while, they left us alone. That didn't last long. We were dismayed, though not particularly surprised when they eventually resolved their differences and teamed up. They still bicker like an old married couple, but now they work together. Yellow even appeared to my mom once, who mistook her for Rin. When we explained that Rin has a demon too, well, my mom started making plans for us all to move again. Blue and Yellow were both tormenting my grandma, and her health was starting to decline rapidly. We were afraid the demons were going to kill her. The first place Rin, my mom, and I moved into had the ghost of a young woman who'd recently died there. She wasn't hostile, just sad. But within weeks, Blue and Yellow caught up to us. Bye-bye, ghost. Separately, they were bad enough. Together, they were absolutely menacing. My mom's health went into a tailspin. She ended up in the hospital, and it became clear that we had to split off. Rin and I set out on our own, taking Kira and Nova with us. After we left, both my mom and grandma made full recoveries. Rin and I moved several more times after that, only ever getting a few weeks of peace at a time. It was like Blue and Yellow were getting smarter, and working together to track us down faster each time. In 2019, we made our biggest leap yet, from the thick humidity of the Florida Panhandle to the dry, high-altitude dust of Wyoming's Wind River. For a while, it worked. Several whole months passed without incident, which was longer than either of them had ever taken to find us. We placed powerful protective wards around our new house, and it slowed them down further. but they retaliated in turn by targeting us at our jobs instead. Rin got shoved headfirst into a bucket of mop water at work and had a nasty reaction to the chemicals. I was partly shoved into a bubbling fry vat, hot oil licking the edge of my arm. Rin almost got arrested when Yellow disappeared a bunch of cash out of her register till. Blue caused me to get a concussion. We lost multiple jobs, and even more friends, thanks to their antics. On Rin's final shift at one of those jobs, Blue tore open a literal portal in the back room, and a whole horde of demons came spilling out. One of them looked like a grotesque, malformed werewolf. Her coworker saw it. They evacuated the store and shut down early. We still don't know what that was all about. And frankly, we're not sure we want to. After that, we left Wyoming entirely. We lived out of our car in Colorado through the dead of winter, nearly freezing our butts off. In 2022, we managed to get the RV. It's not perfect, but it's ours. We've traveled all over the country, but nowadays we float somewhere in the Rockies of Colorado. We have a rule now, one we follow to the letter. We never stay in the same spot for more than 2, maybe 3 weeks at most. The first signs that Blue and Yellow are catching up are always the same. A string of accidents that shouldn't be possible, one after another, getting worse until they finally show themselves. We've warded both the RV and our SUV against them, so they can't enter them, but that hasn't stopped them from wreaking havoc around us in other ways. We've lost 7 generators and had to start warding those, too. Still, we've fallen in love with the spot we're hiding in now. The mountain air is cool and crisp, even in the height of summer. The altitude makes everything feel lighter, quieter, almost like we belong here. I wish we could buy land somewhere nearby and finally settle down. We're getting so tired of always running. We're nearing our time limit again. Gila has been restless at night, growling low and constant, unable to fully relax. Unfortunately, we can't move the RV right now. The only road out is buried under deep, soggy mud puddles that the RV can't safely traverse with its old tires. And at night, we've started to hear scratching along the sides and roof of the RV. I really hate demons. Story 6. If you misbehave at Grandma's, you have to play the bad game. Being the 12-year-old genius that he was, my brother Christopher drew a stick figure with a giant penis in our grandmother's guest room. By the time I caught him it was already too late. The permanent marker had seeped into the off-white wallpaper like a bad tattoo. "She'll never find it," he said, and moved the Catholic calendar over top of the graffiti. "Oh my God, Chris, why are you such a turd? She'll never find it," he said again. I was angry because our parents made it very clear to respect our old, overly pious grandmother. She had survived a war or something, and was lonely all the time. We were only staying over for one night. The least we could do is not behave like brats. You can't just draw dicks wherever you want, Chris. The world isn't your bathroom stall for fucksakes. He ignored my responsible older brother act, took out his phone and snapped pictures of his well-endowed cartoon. Ever since he met his new, shit disturber, friends, Chris was always drawing crap like this. He giggled as he reviewed the art. "Lighten up, Brucey. Don't be a fucking beta." Asterisk. I shoved him, called him a stupid dimwit cunt, among other colorful things. He retaliated. We had one of our patented scuffles on the floor. Amidst our wrestling and pinching, we didn't hear our quiet old grandma as she traipsed up the stairs. All we heard was the slow creak of the door when she poked her head in. My brother and I froze. She had never seen us fight before. She didn't even know we were capable of misbehaving. Grandma appeared shocked, eyes wide with disappointment. "Oh, hi Grandma. Sorry. Didn't mean to wake you." She took a step forward and made the sign of the cross. Twice. Her voice was sad and quiet, like she was talking to herself. Here I was, going to listen in on my two angels sleeping, and instead I hear the B word, the S word, and F word after F word after F word. My brother and I trucked. We stood up, and brushed the floor off of our pajamas. Sorry Grandma, we just got a little out of hand. I promise it wasn't anything. And I even heard one of you say God's name in vain. The Lord's name in vain. Our Lord God's name in vain mixed with F word after F word after F word. Again I couldn't tell if she was talking to us or herself. It almost seemed like she was a little dazed, maybe half asleep. My brother pointed at me with a jittery finger. It was Bruce. Bruce started it. My grandma's eyes opened and closed. It's like she had trouble looking at me. Bruce, why? Why would you do such a thing? Asterisk. I leered at my brother. The S asterisk Hamelis fucking twat. If that's how he wanted it, then that's how it was going to be. Yeah well, Chris drew this. I stood up and snagged the calendar off the wall. Big penis smiley man stared back. Our grandma's face whitened. Her expression twisted like a wet cloth being wrung 4 times over. She walked over to the dick illustration and quite promptly spat on it. She spat on it over and over, until her old, frothy saliva streaked down to the floor. You need to be cleansed. Both of you need a cleansing right now. Asterisk. She grabbed my ear. Her nails were surprisingly sharp. Ow. Oh wow. Hey. Chris and I both winced as she dragged our earlobes across the house. Down the stairs, past her room, down through the basement door, which she kicked open. There's no priest who can come at this hour, but I have the game. The game will have to suffice. The game will shed the bad away. We were dropped on the basement floor. A single yellow bulb lit up a room full of neglected old lawn furniture. Grandma opened a cobwebbed closet full of board games. Asterisk. All of the artwork faded and old. I saw an ancient-looking version of Monopoly, and a very dusty Trivial Pursuit. But the one that Grandma pulled out had no art on it whatsoever. It was all black, with no title on the front, or instructions on the back. Grandma opened the lid and pulled out an old wooden game board. It looked like something that was handcrafted a long time ago. Then Grandma pulled out a shimmery smooth stone, and beckoned us close. Touch the opal. Asterisk. What? Her voice grew much deeper. With unexpected force, Grandma wrenched both Christopher and I's hand onto the black rock. Touch the opal. Asterisk. The stone was cold. A shiver skittered down my arm. Repeat after me. Asterisk, she said, still in her weird, dreamlike trance. I have committed profanity and blasphemy. Asterisk. Christopher and I swapped scared expressions. Grandma, please, can we just go back upstairs? Asterisk. I have committed profanity and blasphemy. Say it. Asterisk. Through frightened inhales we repeated the phrase over and over, and as we did, I could feel a sticky seal forming between my hand and the rock, as if it was sucking itself onto me. Judging by my brother's pale face, he could feel it too. You do not leave until you have cleansed yourselves. You must defeat this bad behavior. You must beat the bad game. Asterisk. Grandma pulled away from us and crossed herself 3 times. God be with you. Asterisk. She skulked up the basement stairs and shut the door. The lock turned twice. I looked up at my brother, who gazed at the black rock glued between our hands. What the heck was going on? Asterisk. As if to answer that question, a tiny groan emerged from the black opal. The rock made a wet asterisk schlook sound and detached from our palms. It started pulsing, writhing. Within seconds the opal gyrated into a torso shape, forming a tiny, folded head, and 4 budding limbs. There came gagging, coughing. The rock's voice sounded like it was speaking through a river of phlegm. Shitting sheetus, Fucking cut your dick off, bitch duck skillet. Asterisk. I immediately backed up against the wall. Chris pulled on the basement door. The black thing flopped onto its front four limbs, standing kind of like a dog, except it kept growing longer and taller. I thought for a second that it had sprouted a tail, but then I realized this tail was poking out of its groin. Chris, is that thing trying to be your drawing? The creature elongated into a stick figure skeleton, with an inhumanely long penis. I could see dense black cords of muscle knot themselves around its shoulders and knees, creating erratic spasms. Hello there you shitty fucker bitches. Fuck you. Asterisk. Its face was a hairless, eyeless, noseless, smiling mass with white teeth. Ready to fucking lose at this game you shitely fucks. Asterisk. The creature stumbled its way over to the board game and then picked up the six-sided die. Its twig hand tossed it against the floor. It rolled a 2. And so the abomination bent over, and dragged a black pawn up 2 spaces on the board game. Shitely pair of fucks you are. Watch me win this game and leave you fuckity fucked. Fuck you. Asterisk. Without hesitation, it reached for the die again, and rolled a 4. Its crooked male organ slid on the floor as it walked to collect the die. Hope you like eating your own shit in hell for eternity you asshole fucktarts. You're going straight to hell. Fuck you. Asterisk. This last comment got Chris and I's attention. We watched as this creature's pawn was already a quarter across the board. Both of our pieces were still on the starting space. Grandma said we had to beat this game. Asterisk. Hey, I managed to stammer. Quote. Aren't we supposed to take turns? You can take a couple turns sucking each other off you bitch tart fuckos. As if I give half a goddamn fuck. Asterisk. It rolled a 6 and moved 6 spaces. I looked at Christopher who appeared paralyzed with fear. I knew we couldn't just stand and watch this nightmare win at this, whatever this was. The next time the creature rolled, I leapt forward and grabbed the die. Shit me. Fuck you. Asterisk. The skeletal thing jumped onto my back and started stabbing. Its fingers felt like doctor's needles. Aw. Chris. Help. Help. I shook and rolled, but the evil thing wouldn't budge. Bruce. Duck. I ducked my head and could hear the whoosh of something colliding with the creature. Fuckly shitters. Shitstable fuckler. Asterisk. The monster collapsed onto the floor, and before it could move my little brother bashed its head again with a croquet mallet. What do I do? Chris stammered. Kill it. The thing tried to crawl away, but it kept tripping on its third leg. Yes, kill it. We gotta freaking kill it. So we stomped on the darkling's skull until it splattered across the basement tiles. As soon as it stopped twitching, its lifeless corpse shrunk back into the shape of a small rock. It was the black opal once more. Holy nards, I said. We spent a hot minute just catching our breath. I don't think I'd ever been this frightened of anything in my entire life. After we collected ourselves, my brother and I alternated rolling dice and moving our pieces on the medieval-looking game. When our pawns reached the last spot, I could hear the basement door unlock. Grandma. But when we went upstairs, our grandmother was nowhere to be seen. We took a peek in her bedroom. She was asleep. Asterisk. The next morning at breakfast we asked our grandma what had happened last night. Both Chris and I were thoroughly shaken and could recount each detail of our grandmother's strange behavior, and the horrible darkling thing in the basement. But Grandma just laughed and said we must have had bad dreams. That's my fault for giving you such late-night desserts. Sugary treats always lead to nightmares. We finished our pancakes in silence. At one point I dropped the maple syrup bottle on my foot. It hurt a lot. But the weird thing was my own choice of words. Oh shucks, I shouted. Shucks, that's smarts. My grandma looked at me with the most peculiar smile. Careful Bruce, we don't want to spill the syrup. Asterisk, asterisk. Ever since that night at Grandma's, I've been unable to swear. Literally, I can't even mouth the words. It's like my lips have a permanent G-rated filter for anything I say. And Chris. He fell out with his, shucks disturber, friends. They just didn't seem to have as much in common anymore. I once asked him if he could try and draw the same stick figure from Grandma's guest room. And he said that he has tried. Multiple times. He showed me his math book, with doodles around every page. They were all stickmen, and they were all wearing pants. I don't know what happened that night of the sleepover. Grandma won't admit to anything. But gosh darn, if my life was saved by culling a couple bad habits, then heck, I'll pay that price and day of the week, consarn it.
Thank you for spending your night with me. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and comment where you're listening from. And if you want more rain-soaked nightmares, check out the next video. Sleep tight, if you can.